Whenever people list off the worst directors, Michael Bay is usually among them. Admittedly, I've seen every single one of his films, and I've yet to find one that truly impressed me. But I certainly don't think he's a terrible director like so many others. He's done films I've strongly disliked, and some I've found to be okay. But he's certainly a filmmaker who's proven himself to have a clear directorial vision. And while he has his annoying tendencies, he has his strong suits as well. To get an understanding of Michael Bay's worldview, it's a good idea to look at the start of his career. In film school, he was a sort of student who would make lavish visual movies with an emphasis on nice cars. He then moved on to the world of commercials and music videos, which explain his hyperkinetic, fast-cutting style. Eventually, Jerry Bruckheimer, a producer known for flashy blockbusters, hired him to direct Bad Boys, and their sensibilities meshed in his first series of feature films. It's not hard to see the Bruckheimer influence in Bay's films, but he managed to craft his own personal style onto them. The first criticism usually attributed to Bay's work is the heavy action. They are often described as loud, confusing, and head-maddening, which are valid. However, I don't quite agree with those who categorize Bay's directing style as lazy. While characters and story do have a tendency of being underdeveloped so he can focus on the action spectacle, they're very much that. Spectacle. Looking at the action scenes, they always strike me as the product of somebody working very hard to prepare the set pieces, the choreography, and pyrotechnics. The Transformers action sequences, for example, have to always account for the fact that giant computer-generated robots will be added in during post-production, and the scenes are planned in such a way that they are seamlessly woven into the frame. This is Bay's strength to me. He has a real understanding of the hard work that goes into mounting these action scenes, and each element of production is carefully put together. I've never seen a Bay film and found the sound mixing, sound design, and special effects to be underwhelming. Bay does have a tendency of moving the camera a little too much for my liking, and his action scenes do tend to outstay their welcome, but they're definitely not lazy. Yes, the characters in Michael Bay films do have the problem being fairly underwritten and one-dimensional, but he does a decent job at defining them and seems to walk into the films with a clear understanding of their motives. Each protagonist also feels distinct. The policeman, Mike and Marcus in Bad Boys, the soldier, Jack Silver in 13 Hours, and nerdy student Sam Witwicky in Transformers are not the same characters at all, and fit into the stories Bay is trying to tell, no matter how simple they are. The most curious and atypical Michael Bay leads consist of the trio of criminals in Pain and Gain. Some felt Pain and Gain glorified the main characters and their actions, but I did not get that impression. I thought it was clear Bay was mocking them and portraying them as idiots. Admittedly, satire is not Bay's strongest suit, and this project may have gelled better under the hands of Martin Scorsese or the Coen brothers. But I think Pain and Gain is one of his better films for his willingness to show these are stupid criminals who make one terrible and brainless decision after another. His supporting characters, on the other hand, those are usually where Michael Bay tends to drop the ball, as they fall under forced comic relief. While I appreciate Bay's action direction, the comedy of his films are not quite as successful in my eyes. The comic relief are almost always stereotypical, even if they just have a minor role. The worst for me are definitely Sam's parents in the Transformers films. One of the reasons I think the fourth film, Age of Extinction, is the best in the series is not only the fact Sam's parents aren't anywhere in it, but also his surprising decision to kill off the annoying comedic sidekick in the first act. Michael Bay pulled off an unexpected move there, and I appreciated it. Women also tend to be shortchanged in his films. Occasionally they'll have a good skill like mechanics or nursing, but they're otherwise there to look sexy and that's it. Michael Bay also manages to portray the military in a respectful light. People have tried to put his films under a political frame of reference, especially 13 Hours, but he's actually a fairly apolitical director. one who has great respect for the president, the military, and America in general, and it's kind of admirable to see a filmmaker take a non-partisan approach in portraying soldiers and the army. He's a heavily patriotic director with plenty of shots of the American flag and soldiers walking heroically, and I cannot fault him for that. However, if one were to look at Bay's worst traits, there are three in particular that come to mind. First, the dialogue in his films. Bay does not have writing credits on any of his movies, so he does not deserve complete blame for the underwhelming dialogue in the scripts he directs. However, he somehow cannot quite elevate the dialogue in the scripts handed to him. His strength is clearly in action scenes. Romantic scenes are something he seems to have trouble with. Like, why is there a scene in Age of Extinction where the older boyfriend of Mark Wahlberg's daughter has to take out a law book to justify their relationship? That's not charming, that's creepy. Do I even need to mention the animal cracker scene in Armageddon?
I really don't think that the animal cracker qualifies as a cracker.
Why?
Well, because it's sweet, which to me suggests cookie, and, you know, maybe putting cheese on something is sort of the defining characteristic of what makes a cracker a cracker. I don't know why I thought of that,
Baby, you have such sweet pillow talk.
Wow, somebody actually looked at that page in the script and approved it for production. Next is the product placement. As I said at the beginning of this video, Michael Bay started his career doing commercials, and it's really obvious in the way he inserts product placement in his films, especially in The Island.
Well, be careful. This is a V12 09 Caddy, 750 horsepower, $500,000 car.
Yes, that exposition was absolutely necessary. In no way does that exist so you could advertise a car. And finally, there's the length of his films. I've never seen a Michael Bay film that was not unnecessarily long. Like Armageddon, for example. The first half is actually quite fun, with some explosive action scenes with pieces of the asteroid crashing down to Earth and the oil drillers preparing to be astronauts. The other way around is probably easier, but whatever. The second half just drags on and on as we spend what feels like a million years on that asteroid. I got so tired of looking at that thing. You're Michael Bay! Why are you taking so long to blow up the damn thing? And there's absolutely no reason the Transformers films should be closer to or over 2.5 hours. People want to go in, watch the robots fight each other, and get out. I want to end off by asking what you think the best and worst Michael Bay films are. The one I consider his best is one that might be considered a tad controversial. Pearl Harbor. This might be the most restrained Michael Bay film, and it's a genuine attempt by him to go back to more of a classical style as opposed to the more modern approach of his other films, and he does somewhat succeed in that goal. However, while he clearly wanted to make something akin to From Here to Eternity, this is more like Hell's Angels. Incredible dogfights and expertly directed scenes of war, but the human interactions are definitely lacking, and the dialogue is super corny and cliched. However, when we get to the bombing of Pearl Harbor, it's the most impressive piece of directing Michael Bay has done, with the stunts, special effects, sound mix, and Hans Zimmer's score succeeding in pulling one in. Really, the film should have stopped after Roosevelt's "A Date Which Will Live in Infamy" speech. But no, the film has to have a more triumphant ending, so Bay drags it out by haphazardly wrapping up the love triangle and including the Doolittle raid on Tokyo. My least favorite Michael Bay film? Transformers: Dark of the Moon. The film takes all of his worst tendencies and multiplies them by 10 billion. The annoying comic relief sidekicks? This is filled with them, with even Sam Witwicky falling prey to those antics. The never-ending action scenes? Oh boy, do they never end. The camera swooping around uncontrollably and fast editing? All over this movie. I pretty much got a headache from how this film just kept pummeling and pummeling. It really feels like Michael Bay, before every scene, just drank a whole six-pack of Red Bull. Again, the special effects and a couple of other production elements are well put together, but that's all this has going for it. It's a complete and utter mess that frankly got on my nerves the entire time. Otherwise, despite that and other disappointing films on his resume, Michael Bay is an accomplished filmmaker, even if I don't entirely agree with some of his directorial decisions. He's undoubtedly an auteur who's established his own identity, for better or for worse, depending on your viewpoint. And that deserves some credit. But what do you think about Michael Bay? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.